Richard Callamaras, thank you for having me. And thanks, obviously, right time for having us. They're friends of ours and part of our family for a very long time. And we're happy to be here, and I think I've met at least half this room already tonight. And one of the things that I love to do in my job, I have the greatest job in the world. I get to travel all over, do events like this, speak to people, talk to them, and really get your feedback on the watches. I want to educate, and I want to talk, and I want to let you know what you need to know about the importance and significance of the brand. But this brand is really collector driven. I'm very lucky that I was a collector, was brought on board to do some consulting, and then we ended up kind of inventing and evolving and finding our way together to help work with and run and work from a design perspective to operations to sales. And I literally am blessed and have the best job in the world. But from that perspective, and the reason they chose me, is they knew I would want to get out here and talk to all of my friends in the watch world to find out exactly what it was that moves us. And Accutron is a brand that has always been a disruptor, right? Our watches are avant-garde style. The color is a big piece, the shapes, right? The material, the movement, technology is a big part of what we do. But there's a tremendous history to the brand as well. And we're very new. We stopped producing watches a while back, and we wanted to develop the electrostatic movement, and we wanted to re-release the brand. We did that a few years back, and we did that along with this company as well to be one of the first places we were at, and we appreciate that relationship. But as we continue to evolve, we laid down the legacy, right? The legacy is that avant-garde styling, that beautiful kind of his-her piece. It was all original to the size and shape, and it spoke to really, again, the historical choices of why we design watches the way we design them, right? Electrostatic spoke to that innovation, like the original tuning fork. So that innovation was a big piece. And again, the electrostatic, and we'll talk about it tonight ad nauseum, but you're going to see that that technology is just next level. It doesn't even almost make sense at a certain point. You can't believe how that watch operates and runs, and it's just so beautiful to look at. And there's so many aesthetics that we involved in that. So lucky to work with great timepieces and great people like Roger, who can work with us, and a lot of you know him as well. So we really have the right team, the right watches, and we have the right people who appreciate what we do and understand what we do. And the people who are here and collect and wear Accutron, those people, they understand what we mean when we say it's not a timepiece, it's a conversation piece. Because from the way that we dress to the way that we talk to the way that we style, we're not like everyone else, and we love that, right? And that's who we are. So not every Accutron is for everybody, but your Accutron is out there, right? So as we continue to evolve that, and we evolve the brand, the next piece, and we think the most important piece, and definitely one of the most significant pieces, is the Astronaut. You cannot tell the story of America without telling the story of Accutron, right? They were together, right? I mean, when you talk about mid-century modern, like that is kind of that is who we are. We were creating that while it was being created, and we're very proud of that. We were very fortunate to be there at that time and very much part of the space race. And I think that, you know, sometimes you can catch lightning in a bottle, right? And what I love about the electrostatic timepiece is that's exactly what it is. It's lightning in a bottle. So I love these little things that connect us all. And when we talk about Accutron, what we've tried to do, because every brand has to kind of have like a cornerstone. So honoring the past, celebrating the present, inspiring the future. I think he said it best when he said, it's you. You have a youthful colic, a little ash on your tie, right? This was a watch that contemporaries and a generation from, I would say, 30 to 45 was wearing when it first came out. But that's not who Accutron is anymore, right? Look at this room. This is who it is. It's everywhere, right? It's really permeated, right? All classes and people and all types of people, and it's incredibly diverse who it reaches. And we want to celebrate that. And that's why we're so unique, right? That's why it's so inspired when it comes to how we design and what we put forward. So we want to honor the past, but it's really about what we can do now to be able to kind of put out there something that appeals to everyone. And in 1960, as some of you may know, and I want to talk about this quickly, is that watch didn't look like any other watch on the planet Earth. right? Everything was a tank watch or a cushion case, right? And then all of a sudden this spaceship landed on someone's wrist. And everybody wanted to know what was going on. And the funny part is that this watch, and I have an example of it here in white gold, was a solid gold timepiece. It's called oh my gosh, my mind's blanking, the Alpha, because it was the first design. So this first design piece came out, and it had an actual dial on it. No one knew what was going on with this thing. And no one wanted to buy it. It was not a successful watch at first, because people would put it to their ear, and would they hear a tick? They heard a hum. And they were freaked out by it because they didn't know what was going on. Imagine wearing a tank watch, walking in and seeing something like this, and saying, that's crazy, right? So what we did is we took the dial off, we put it in a case on top of, a clear case on top of the display, and we let people see the inside of the watch. And people said, that's crazy, I want that watch. And we were like, well, we actually don't make that watch. Well, we started making Space View watches, as you all know, in 1964, but we made these, and there is a limited run of only 500 of those that we put out to 500 retailers, and there are some people, I know 2 people that own an original one that was put out as a display. So, really cool history there. But that watch, I mean, look at that thing. Like, that's a satellite. That's a spaceship, right? And you'll see that that watch really went through a bunch of different evolutions over time. But it really started, and people ask me this question, is Bulova Accutron. Are they the same? Are they different? What's going on, right? Well, listen, we're the son of, right? So that's always going to be there. And we're very proud of the heritage of what Bulova was, because Bulova and Joseph Bulova, if you don't know anything about him, 19-year-old boy, was hired by Tiffany's to come to New York to open up their Diamond Jubilee store for a World's Fair. He was chosen of one of 3 people in the world. He lived in Bohemia, and he was 19. That's how talented he was. There's no phones. There's no social media. How do you find someone in Bohemia, a country that doesn't even exist, right? He was that good. He comes to America, and in 5 years bought his own building in the jewelry district, left Tiffany's, and created the Joseph Bulova Company. That's amazing. He invented 360 unique patents, not just with jewelry, not just with Accutron movements later with his son, but bicycle cranks. Like, he was an inventor. He was just this avant-garde guy, and he did crazy things, and I think Accutron speaks to that. So, Bulova and Accutron are different, but they're the same, right? When you think of Dale Earnhardt and Dale Earnhardt Jr., same guys, but different. You think of Solomon and King David, same guys, but very different, right? So, that's kind of how that relationship happens. But with Accutron, it really is that piece that makes a conversation happen. Look at the little kid listening to the hum. How many people in this room that are my age or above remember grabbing Dad's watch and listening to it because it was the coolest thing, right? Got some hands raising, right? It was just the coolest thing. But it was also a satellite on your wrist. So people like Paul Newman, you'll see in another slide, and Elvis Presley, you know, huge fans of this. But we went, this is styles and equal pay for equal time, talking about a disruptor, supporting women and women's rights, and talking about father-son relationship. Joseph Bulova supported the suffragette movement in France and in America. Employed more women than any other company in the world for 20 straight years. We've always appreciated and loved, and currently our company is, our top executives, 75% are women. So great companies, and that's Accutron, that's, you know, luxury lines, Bulova as well. So we continue to really understand and appreciate that, and we work and design and sell from that perspective.
Amen.
There he is. Yeah, right? That's a beautiful thing. Paul Newman and his Accutron. So Paul Newman also owns an Astronaut, and you can look that up. There's a whole story behind that as well. He's standing next to one of his race cars wearing an Astronaut. But this was the first watch that really pulled him in. And it's actually, when we talked to him and asked him about it, he said, it's like wearing a satellite on your wrist. And we literally took that picture, paid him for that statement, and made it an ad. So really cool there. And then obviously we've recommitted, and almost everybody owns one of these at this point, is the Elvis Presley watch. It comes in all these great straps and styles and colors, including that metal. But that's the Elvis Presley watch. We were able to buy that from Graceland. Yep. So, electrostatic happens. So what is electrostatic? Catching lightning in a bottle. Didn't I say that? So lightning in a bottle twice. And what I love is the juxtaposition of how simple it is at night in the loom, and then how complex it is when the lights come on, right? So you get this incredibly complex movement, and then the lights go out, and it's just beautiful, clean aesthetic. It's a few dots, a couple hands, and that's it. So exciting. Now there are we have 24 total patents in this watch. 9 of them are unique to horology, have never been created before in that electrostatic timepiece. That doesn't include 2 world first technologies in a watch. So actually 11. And the 2 world first is, obviously you saw those rotors at the bottom. Those rotors at the bottom are the generators. And then we have a motor because we wanted not an aesthetic, but an actual, because the tuning fork created for the first time that sweeping second. And it's a beautiful aesthetic that everybody appreciated, but it was by mistake. It was something people just fell in love with, but it's powered by the actual tuning fork. And the reason it looks like a sweep is because it's actually moving 360 times a second, so you can't perceive it moving. Now, this is on the actual technology we recreate this, not we recreated, but invented here with the electrostatic. We said, well, let's create another world first and put an electrostatic motor because it runs in a perfect sweep, and we'll connect the second hand to that. So now we have to create a whole nother train bridge, a whole nother system to run and operate that watch. Like, it's amazing. They spared no, like, if you could imagine it, they wanted to find a way to make it happen. So a really amazing watch. Took a long time for us to make, but that's a complicated timepiece. That's a fun watch. And you see on the very back, it's a rotor. So we have a rotor, we use, again, it's a mechanical timepiece as well. So we take that old technology of a rotor. The rotor doesn't necessarily wind the watch, but it's an ancillary system that helps boost what we have already going with the, as you all saw tonight, your finger can be the catalyst to agitate those ions and get it moving. But we also know that, hey, what else can we do to kind of store energy and create power when that watch is maybe sitting on your desk, right? So if there's any movement in that watch, it's going to continue to give it that power and store that energy. So we have a lot of systems that back that up that we've put in place to make this watch a watch that all you have to do is buy it, push in the crown, and the thing's going to run forever. It's just the easiest watch ever. It's so cool. So thanks for letting me go through the electrostatic. Those are the generators at the bottom. As I said, you have the turbine up top. And then you have that step motor piece you saw off to the right. That controls the hour and minute hand. But we are here tonight to talk about space. So, how many people were aware that the astronaut and the Accutron movement there is no moon without Accutron. It was in all 46 Apollo missions. Every one of them were timed with Accutron technology. So, you don't get to the moon without the proper timing, right? Because that math, you miss the moon, right? There isn't every other watch that's a mechanical timepiece, whatever the brand is, the most you're going to get is up to 8 hertz. That's recent. That's within the last 2 years. Most of it has been 6 hertz, right? Tuning fork technology went to 360, right? So we take that and we're up to over hundreds of thousands in some watches. And in our electrostatic piece, you're at 36,000 plus beats a second. So the timing is just out of control. But without that, when you're trying to do the math and you're trying to time something over a day or two, well, that pushes you geometrically when you're creating angles way out into space. But with the Astronaut, with the Accutron technology in the dashboards and in the cockpits, we were able to actually get you to land within like a 10-meter circle, anywhere on the moon you wanted. That's pretty amazing, right? So the technology that came with this watch came right out of those dashboards, right onto the wrists of the astronauts. Who knows who General Omar Bradley is? Who wants to give me a history lesson? Does anybody know who that gentleman is? He was the last 5-star general of the United States. And he was quoted in Congress saying, the American government needs to build up a watch company. because they are the most dangerous company in the world. And it was because they knew we were developing Accutron technology. So, you may or may not know this, but he became the chairman of the board of our company. And the Army and the military bought and created a whole separate section for top secret development from our company. So the Accutron technology was in a lot of things that people thought were aliens are creating this and the Nazis have alien technology and we have, no. There was a lot of really smart people working really hard to protect us and take care of us, right? But there may be aliens. I'm not saying that they're not. I'm just saying that. But General Omar Bradley actually ran our company for a very long time. And we're very proud of that. So you'll see at the very far right the clock from the Lunar Excursion Module. That was actually the clock that they use, and we had one of those on the moon. And it was transmitting accurately just up until a few years back, and it ended up stopping at some point. But it was up there transmitting for like 50 years, accurately. Yeah. And you'll see the astronaut in there. Now, we have the astronaut. So if you look at the right, you'll see the X-15, and that is the first spy plane. This watch was created for the X-15, the A-12, and the SR-72 Blackbird. These watches were incredibly robust, and that's why they were used, because when you're traveling Mach 6, which is the fastest that any plane has ever gone, right? That's not a hypersonic, which recently came out, and hypersonic's different technology. These things were traveling over 4,000 miles an hour. They actually slowed down the hairspring on a regular mechanical watch. Is that crazy? So they also, as you probably know, another thing that's a problem with mechanical watches is heat. These watches, it was 140 degrees in the cockpit, so it retarded the metal, which also harmed that. So over time, the watches were thrown off within an hour. They were telling the wrong time. So the astronaut was able to, with its technology, was able to withstand incredible time, incredible pressures, and incredible heat. So that's why this watch is so significant. We started with the T, quite frankly, because it's the most beautiful. That bezel, and I think that configuration on the dial is incredibly unique. So this is where you all get to start to talk to me about it. What do you see on that dial as a GMT on the bezel that you don't see on pretty much any other bezels?
12 times 12.
Yeah, what's that all about? What do you think?
Night and day.
It is a day-night, right? So you have the white and you have the GMT, what was it, the Master that came out in 1954 for Pan American that Rolex created, did like the Pepsi dial they call it, the blue and red. Well, we did the black and white. So day-night configuration, but it's 12 and 12. Why would we choose 12? You don't see 12 and 12 very often. So why 12 and 12? I'll give you two reasons. The first reason is going to be very technical. One, it was very easy to see, right? With black and white and not colors that could be confused or juxtaposed. Like red and blue are very static when they're next to each other, but black and white, your brain separates immediately. So these pilots in planes going Mach 6 needed to be able to register things quickly, right? So we chose black and white, but we chose 12 and 12 because if you look at the dial, there's 24 indices on the dial. So one, it looks as good in the dark as it does in the light, but it also allows your GMT hand to be able to point to an actual time on the dial. So you can have a third time zone on your bezel. And your bezel is now, it goes from 12 to 24 to 12 times 24. So it's easy to separate in your mind quickly all three time zones. Did you guys all know too that any GMT watch with a bezel can also be a compass? Right? So if you set your GMT to midnight, and then you set your GMT hand to your local time, and it's daytime, and you point your hour hand at the sun, wherever the GMT hand is pointing is north. Right? So this watch was a functional timepiece for people. What if your watch goes down? You need to have all these things. So this watch was designed with that purpose. Now, what else is unique about that crazy bezel? Where does it split the day-night?
5:30.
What in the world? Why would it, like what in the world, right? So that's just one of those pieces that, and this will go into the second reason why we think we may have had a 12 and 12, is We also wanted to kind of separate it so it wasn't confused with the 6, but it was a design choice. Avant-garde styling, unique to Accutron. We wanted to do something different. And you won't see that really on any other watch. There's one watch that just came out that's actually a Grand Seiko that kind of splits it under the 6s. But this is the only watch you're going to see that does that. Now, why 12 and 12? We also think, and there's that rumor, and there's always stories to be told, right? And we don't, I can't say that this is really why it happened, but I know that from a collector and other collectors' perspectives, I've heard that it was also very much an American watch, and we were very proud of that. And although it's military, and we have that military time on the dial, we wanted to use 12 and 12 to kind of also speak to the American kind of heritage of this timepiece. So there's also that. And it did snub a little bit, you know, put our nose up a little to the Swiss, because there was a lot going on with GMTs at that time and being developed, and it was going from, in that time frame, I think about 8 years later after this was released, the Traveler came into play. So this is a Swiss-made SW330-2 timepiece, 56-hour power reserve. It's got 25 joules, so we've upped some of that from its actual base piece, and we've kind of leveled it up, and we've also done that above some of the other pieces that you would compare us to from other companies. We wanted to kind of give it a little bit, make it a little bit more robust, but it was very important for us to stick to being a office GMT, because that's what the original was. So do we know the difference between office, Traveler, and World Timer? So World Timers were created in 1930. Because in 1930, the Industrial Revolution happened, and people lived in New York but had businesses all over the world and needed to be able to tell the time because they couldn't travel there. Because who can get on a plane or get on a train? Nobody at that time. Then they came out with the office GMT, because now the office GMT says, I'm sitting in my office, but I'm doing business like I do a lot with LA. So I have New York and I have LA on my time. So I can tell those zones. But there's sometimes where Richard is in 3 time zones in 2 days and 4 time zones in 5 days, and I need to put on a Traveler GMT because it's easier for me to step off the airplane now and quickly adjust the hour hand as opposed to the GMT hand. So one is not better than the other. Those technologies were created for a reason, and this one was purposefully built, and we thought it was very important to stick to the historicity of it and stick with that purpose-built timepiece. So what do we think? What do we think? We're happy?
Awesome.
I saw a lot of smiles tonight. Awesome, I heard? Yeah? Beautiful. Did people get to try it on? Like, I know I've been handing mine out. I know Roger has one on too. We want you to...
I had one on.
You had one on. It's been stolen, right? But the build quality of this watch is out of this world. On the wrist, it just feels so beautiful, luxurious, and it has that perfect weight balance to it. This watch is a special watch.